Hey everyone, and welcome back to MMA Alerts. To start off today, Khabib makes a big claim about Islam Makhachev vs. Dustin Poirier. Ever since Khabib Nurmagomedov beat Dustin Poirier in 2019, he has had a string of big wins that stand out. But the former champion says that the man who will fight Islam Makhachev at UFC 302 isn't that different from the diamond that Khabib defeated. Poirier beat Max Holloway in April to win the temporary lightweight title. Later that same year, he was chosen to fight Khabib for the undisputed title. Nurmagomedov won the fight with a rear naked choke in the third round. In 2024, Khabib is helping his partner and longtime friend Makhachev get ready for Poirier. Khabib had this to say about Poirier when he talked about the fight on the UFC's Countdown show. Khabib also said Makhachev is the better boxer all around. But Khabib made that comment, and UFC featherweight Billy Quarantillo replied in the following way: "That's why we watch almost to the end. Let's go." Others quickly pointed out that Makhachev is a better wrestler and grappler than they are, but that's not always the case of fighting. Yes, DP is a better wrestler, but is he a 100% better striker? Not at all. It's crazy for an Islam coach to say that Islam is a better scorer than Dustin. He's not a better fighter, he's not wrong, but DP can still catch him early and keep things interesting. It will be very interesting to see if Poirier can pull off the upset, and if he can, how he does it. Islam Makhachev wasn't happy with the new UFC gloves. When the UFC first showed off their new line of gloves, they said they would be a big step up from what athletes have been wearing. It looks like Islam Makhachev doesn't like the new gloves, though. In fact, the lightweight winner thinks the gloves might make things harder during fights. The UFC held a news conference in April to show off the new gloves, and they also gave out a lot of promotional materials for them. In one case, the following was quoted from a press release that UFC boss Dana White signed. "Over the past few years, the best designers, engineers, and athletes in the world have helped us make these gloves. The whole sport of mixed martial arts will be changed by this makeover. These gloves will make fighters' hands feel lighter, fit better, keep them from getting hurt, and give them the most freedom possible during fights. This summer, you'll start to see these in races." Makhachev was asked to try on the gloves while talking to Sport 24 a long time before his fight with Dustin Poirier next weekend at UFC 302. It's clear that the champion is worried. The new gloves are really stiff. The old UFC gloves were lighter, so these will cause more cuts. These are stronger. They don't let you fully open your hand to make sure your fingers don't stick out straight ahead, but other than that, they're pretty much the same. As the first UFC golden gloves, I'm going to frame them next to the belt. That's not really a positive recommendation. Another bad thing is that the C is coming off of Makhachev's glove in that picture. It's still early, so it will be interesting to hear what other fighters have to say about the gloves. Also, we probably shouldn't judge until we see how well the gloves work in real fights. If it's possible to cut down on eye pokes without cutting up more, that would obviously be a good thing. The next match is between Henry Cejudo and Peter Yan. Not long ago, Henry Cejudo called out Rob Font, but now, in an interesting turn of events, Triple C and Peter Yan have decided to stop fighting. To be exact, they have through social media. And Cejudo said on social media a few days ago that he wants to fight Font next. But Font isn't placed in the top 5 in bantamweight and has lost 4 of his last 5 fights, so Cejudo was criticized right away for calling Font out. One man who didn't agree with Cejudo's dare was another contender named Song Yadong. Yadong also said he wants to fight Triple C and that he wants to do it in China. "Hey, Henry Cejudo, I heard that China is a lucky place for you. In 2008, you won the gold medal at the Olympics. You are welcome to come over in August of this year. Let's give the people a show." It's going to be a real show. Do not call out Font anymore. Not surprisingly, Cejudo didn't ignore Yadong's comment and dare. He replied with this, which is the king of cringe. "Believe me, I love going to China because everyone there calls me Shaq. Song, don't worry, your time will come. I am going to make you a limp dong. But first I need Peter Yan. No way I'm rushing to kick his ass." It didn't take Yan long to answer his fellow former champion, and it sounds like the Russian fighter is out. The CCPVs, the CCCC. In his lost past, the triple clown went back to the land of his accomplishments. Write it down. When it comes to the title shot, Cejudo vs. Yan is a lot more important than Cejudo vs. Font. In the UFC's bantamweight division, Cejudo is ranked number 5 and Yan is ranked number 3 right now. The only problem that might come up is with the time. Following his March decision win over Song, Yan said he had hurt himself in the fight, including tearing his ACL. It seems likely that he won't be going back to the octagon anytime soon. Next, Ronda Rousey tells the truth about UFC events. Before she became the UFC bantamweight queen, Ronda Rousey was a big name in many sports, not just MMA. But not long ago, the star gave another history lesson about how the UFC wasn't interested in women's MMA until Strikeforce showed them it had a lot of promise. Yes, if you're new to MMA, you might not know that Rousey was one of Strikeforce's best fighters before she joined the UFC. After the attention Gina Carano got While fighting for Elite XC before joining the company run by Scott Coker, Strikeforce decided to push women's fights. Well, Rousey has been in the news since her book came out. The former fighter thought about Carano's success and how it made her want to try MMA. The Strikeforce was in the space below the glass roof. Gina Carano's dad worked with the Las Vegas Athletic Commission and got women's MMA fights approved just for her. That's pretty much all that got her the title. She ended up getting so much support for her matches that they made the Strikeforce 145 division title for her to fight for. They added a 135-pound division later as well. Rousey later said in the interview that she started to understand how big women's MMA could be after seeing future rival Miesha Tate fight. It's true that everything went crazy in the end. Rousey was a big deal in women's MMA, but now there aren't any other stars like her. Nick Diaz is being challenged by Dylan Danis to UFC 303. Less than 7 months have passed since Dylan Danis said he was retiring from fighting, but angry fighters and internet trolls have asked the UFC to put him in a fight with the famous Nick Diaz. After being let out of his Bellator contract last fall, Danis finally said he would be quitting in November. But because Danis has a history of saying things over and over that aren't true, not everyone thought he was serious. Now it's May 2024, and Danis just recently asked him at UFC, recently asked to fight him at UFC 303. I'd like to fight Nick Diaz at UFC 303. Let's go. There's a little more to this story. That is, Danis did not just pick Diaz's name at random. People on social media earlier this year asked Diaz if he was ducking Danis. The Stockton star replied, "Don't be scared, homie." Then, could this fight really happen? It's possible that a lot of fans would love to see it, but don't hold your breath. First, Danis isn't signed with the UFC right now. And whenever Dana White has been asked about the fighter in question, he hasn't seemed too eager to change that. Also, Diaz has fought since his disappointing return to the cage in 2021 when he lost to Robbie Lawler. Given that UFC 303 is coming up in about a month, it would be very surprising if Diaz was added to the card at all. Not at all for a fight with Danis. But you never know, right? The UFC might agree to the fight if Nick really wants it. Let's look at Robert Whittaker gets a warning for the fight with Khamzat Chimaev. Next month, Khamzat Chimaev will have to deal with a big problem. Robert Whittaker, who used to be the middleweight king for a long time. Recently, Darren Till, Chimaev's friend and training partner, was asked to say what he thought about the fight. The Liverpool fighter said nice things about Whittaker's skills, but Till doesn't think the former champion will last long against the unbeaten star. On June 22nd, Chimaev will fight Whittaker in a show that will take place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Chimaev hasn't fought since he narrowly won a decision over Kamaru Usman, a former middleweight champion. This will be his first fight since then. The last time Till talked to Mac Live was before his fight with Julio Chavez Jr. It wasn't a surprise that the gregarious fighter was asked to say something about the Chimaev-Whittaker fight, and he did. I believe Khamzat beats him. He needs to be very careful. Whittaker is a very smart opponent, what he does with his punches and takedowns, but I don't think he'll start going after Khamzat for takedowns. Instead, I think Khamzat will start going after Whittaker. You've seen him before. Whittaker fought all of it. He plays great defense. If Khamzat is going to beat him, I think it will be in the second round. He might be able to stop him. And Khamzat is strong, man. He can move quickly. He really knows how to punch and kick, so the fight should be fun. There are many things that point to a very good fight. Well, Chimaev does have one of the scariest top games in MMA, and as Till said, he can crack. A lot of people think Whittaker is one of the best middleweights of this generation because he is so good at both wrestling and hitting. In the second round, can Chimaev get Whittaker out of there? How about in the later rounds? If he can't, will he be able to keep up with Whittaker? Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for latest fight updates.